One midweek off day. You know how exciting those can be. You can get a lot done. But can the Rangers get enough done on their first home off day since March? We talk about that and so much more as we try to right this ship. It's the DLLS Rangers podcast. Yeah, bring back the joy, bring back the energy, bring back the excitement, bring back the offense. It's a great exhortation. We'll hope that perhaps the Rangers can somehow figure out a way to do just that. Hi there, welcome into the DLLS Sports Studios. It's the DLLS Rangers podcast. John Radigan, Jeff Wilson, Elijah Smith, the Prophet over here hanging out. We've got lots to talk about. We know you will be here chatting with us, and we appreciate that. As always, of course, spend the later portion of your lunch hour with us as we try to figure this out. So we mentioned the Rangers, a first off day at home since March. And, Jeff, for me, an off day in the middle of the week like that, you know, it generally will start with a little Whataburger breakfast, then maybe a trip to Home Depot. And, you know, I call it putzing. And then I kind of putz around, right? From place to place and get my putzing done. The one thing the Rangers, I think, don't want to include in their off-day itinerary is anything baseball.
Get away, all right? Just get your mind cleared. Don't worry about what's happening on the field, at the plate. Just get away. And the Rangers haven't had a home day. What did you say last night? Haven't had a home off day since March.
Right.
All right. And yeah, you know, coming back and thinking about it, I'm like, hey, why isn't my grass getting cut? Oh, it's because they haven't been
right.
off.
Yeah.
You know, there are reasons for this. So my putzing after the show will include mowing the lawn. I doubt anybody with the Rangers mows their own grass, but do something to get your mind off, something therapeutic, whether it's going to the driving range and hitting balls or going to the bar. Or,
nice dinner out.
Doing
whatever.
something with your family. Just get away from it. Get away.
Yeah. Yeah, because, again, as we say in the headline of the show, in some ways now the Rangers are fighting this war on two fronts. The first front is obvious, right? Most of the troops are up at the front line trying to make sure we figure out how to get this offense going. But you got to watch your rear in battle, Jeff, too.
That's right.
And behind, sneaking up on them could be some concerns about the pitching. Now, it appears that the Rangers have dodged a bullet on Nathan Eovaldi. If you didn't hear yesterday, or if you weren't by the channel late last night after that loss in the series finale, you may not know, but Nathan Eovaldi's, all the medical stuff checked out beautifully. That problem he was feeling in his tricep, nothing to worry about at all. They're going to try to give him a little more time off than normal, but not necessarily use the injured list. I am now, having thought about this, Jeff, and the thought there was with off days and so forth, you wouldn't have to press any pitcher into working on short rest, but you would keep the rest of them on normal rest, right, before they pitch again, but you'd move Nathan back in the rotation.
Mm-hmm.
I am now of the mindset, Jeff, as I think about this, I would rather a spot starter. You still don't have to use the injured list, but because that's 15 days for a pitcher, and that is a hit. That's significant.
Yeah.
But you use a spot starter or a piggyback type situation, and you give those other pitchers ample rest right now because they're at 60 innings, a lot of them, right? 65 innings. I mean, they're on pace. The Jacob deGroms of the world and the Tyler Malleys of the world, they're on pace for 180 innings. And that's a lot for guys that are coming back from Tommy John surgery.
Yeah, it's definitely not ideal. What is the alternative? Is the alternative a spot starter? Is that better for the long-term gain of this team? And you could definitely argue that it is, but who's going to make that start?
Well, that's the question.
Who's going to make it? Bruce Bochy kind of poured water on my idea that Kumar Rocker would be the guy because he might only be able to give you 3 or 4 innings, and then might as well go with a bullpen day. So I'm not sure how they're going to tackle this one. You don't want to use. The good news is, I guess, both long guys are optionable pieces.
Yes.
So Jake Latz and Caleb Bosley could do it, but then one of them's got to go the next day. You got to have some multiple inning relief options. So I really don't know. The skipping thing. Yeah, you don't want to pile up the pitch counts on DeGrom as the Rangers didn't want to do the other night. Malle's worked a lot. Are you pushing your luck with Leiter, who's still probably not used to pitching on 4 days rest? Patrick Corbin seems to be doing fine, I think.
Yeah, he's a workhorse
of the rest, but it's like, can those guys get one more start? Can you do that to them one more time? Sacrifice this upcoming Monday off day for that. I think that's probably the way they're going to go because just looking at the options, there aren't any options.
No,
in AAA, there really aren't.
I mean, Bosley and Latz are the option. You could do a piggyback with them and hope that they could maybe give you 6.
Yeah,
right. 3 innings each.
Yeah,
I mean, that would be at this point as it's currently constructed, and really, there's nobody to call up for that situation.
No, honestly, your best choices are probably you have Dane Dunning, who's done it before.
True.
Okay, he's not on
the 40 man. Yeah,
so you got to add him, and then you're immediately gonna
take
him off, in all likelihood. Gerson Garabito somehow remains on the 40-man roster, but he hasn't been particularly good at AAA. I think the best option, if we're being perfectly honest, is Cole Drake or Mitch Bratt at AA. Lefties, different stuff, but they throw a bunch of strikes. And Bratt, he pitched for Canada in that game against the USA and didn't get out of the first inning. He was just a terrible failure. But hey, at least he's been on the big stage before.
Right.
Maybe he can handle it. But yeah, and I do think that he is might be Rule 5 eligible after this season. So
get him on the 40 man.
Get him on, and because I think he'd get somebody to pick him up in the Rule 5. He's a premium strike thrower, left-handed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe that's one way they go with it. I don't know. But
no, what about Cole? Speaking of Cole's, is Cole Winn not stretched out at all?
Only to a couple innings. And he's not there yet.
So he would only be a part if they did it be a bullpen day.
Yeah. Or maybe they go Latz, Winn, and hope to get through 5 and then, finish it out with Milner going 2, Webb getting you 1. Some combination. Yeah,
that's the one thing. If you do Latz Bosley and you need a long man the next day, you got nobody.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, to your point, though, I mean, we're here basically 2 months into the season, and the rotation has worked a lot, the bullpen has worked a lot, and it's not just that they've worked a lot of high stress situations. I mean, last night for Jacob Webb was a high stress situation. For all of them, it was a high stress situation. But no margin for error. You can't make a mistake. You make one, you lose the game. That's not fair on anybody.
No.
But with Martin on the injured list, he's hoping to come off at the minimum. It's just a tough time right now for the pitching staff. And gosh, they've been so good, but it's just with no margin for error. The innings, it may only be 1 inning, but with the stress level, it may feel like a little bit more
6,
work.
Yeah.
So That's something that Bruce Bochy and Mike Maddox are trying to work through right now too. How do we preserve these guys?
Yep, we get to the offense because we see lots of comments in the chat about that here momentarily. We continue to work through the pitching a little bit. Jeff and I both had conversations with a couple of the injured pitchers who appear both. And I don't. Have you talked to Cody Bradford?
Yep.
I didn't get to Cody the other day.
Yep.
So we'll get updates on all of them. Chris Martin, Cody Bradford, John Gray. Jeff and I were both chatting with Martin and with Gray, and Chris Martin's just great. I mean, he's ready to go tomorrow. I mean, he just wants to be back, and he'd be ready to go 3 days in a row again. He wants the ball.
He does, and he wanted to throw a bullpen session. I don't know if he got up on the mound.
I wonder if he got to. Yeah,
I don't know if he accomplished that yesterday or not, but he hopes it's the minimum. He said that it was interesting. The shoulder issue was the same popping noise as the elbow issue, which he now thinks is a shoulder. Was from the shoulder.
Yeah, he thinks it's the same thing.
It's the same noise,
right? Yeah. But with the adrenaline and everything else, you don't you hear a noise and you go, "Oh God, what popped?" Right?
Yeah.
And so he thinks, both times that he basically went out there for one pitch and heard a pop, it was the same pop, and neither pop resulted in anything when they did all the X-rays and the MRIs and everything. And he was obviously thrilled about that. But he also said, we talked to him about, hey, if you hear that pop again, he goes, I got to keep going,
Right.
And yet he goes, there's nothing more that'll freak you out more as a pitcher. This is your living than hearing one of those joints pop when you're not used to hearing that.
Yeah. And I can understand why it'd be unnerving. That's your moneymaker right there. And there are a lot of parts within that moneymaker.
Sure.
But he said it doesn't happen when he warms up, so he's not able to pitch through it in the bullpen.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah.
And so it's like, well, you don't want to keep going, but you just don't know what the heck it is. And so hopefully he's learned now that the next time it happens, just throw another pitch.
Yeah, give it a shot. Give it a shot.
What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah. Yeah, well, don't even ask. Don't even ask. Because that's part of the conversation we referenced last night that we had with John Gray. It's not a matter of if, and we just talked about these pitchers and, keeping an eye on your flank. It's not a matter of if. It's a matter of when somebody else needs 15 days minimum. And so that's where John Gray could well come back into a role as a starting pitcher. However, the main part of our conversation with him was about, as you asked him right off the bat, you can get back more quickly as a relief pitcher.
Yeah, and Cody Bradford was asked the same thing yesterday. I'd talked to him Tuesday and then talked to him again yesterday, and he understands that. It's like in 23, he was hurt, last year rather, he was hurt and came back and threw in the bullpen, and he actually knew that was going to happen when he started his rehab assignment, and was like, "Hey, well, let me rehearse, let me do some relief work." Cody's open for anything. He was on the weekly show in the offseason, like, I'm just here to serve the team.
Sure,
whatever they want me to do, I'm happy to do. So, and Chris Young, when I spoke to him Monday, he said, John Gray and Cody Bradford are coming back, and that's going to help give us bullpen options, whether it's them replacing somebody in the rotation or themselves becoming relievers. And, I think everybody for almost, a season and a half now has wanted John Gray to be a relief pitcher.
Yeah.
He himself is like, I have a rubber arm. I can get warm in like 5 pitches. I can throw back-to-back days. He's willing to do whatever. And that's a big risk for him because he is going into free agency after this year, and maybe that's his future. Maybe, and again, it's not his arm that ever gets hurt. It's his the rest of his body. But maybe this is how he holds up. Maybe reliever is in his future. I don't know, but anyway, it's the offense, which we're going to talk about here in the next segment, is one thing, but the adverse effect it has on the rest of the roster.
Yeah.
Specifically the pitching can't be overlooked.
Nope, it can't be, and so it won't be. We'll continue to talk about both as the Rangers will continue to concentrate on both and try to get both completely healthy and then keep them that way. More coming up as we continue. We're going to talk about the long conversation I had with Brett Boone. It'll definitely dovetail into many of the comments you have about the offense. We talk about that next. It's the DLLS Rangers podcast.
You know, John, I had to have an uncomfortable conversation with Molly yesterday.
Okay,
I picked her up from volleyball camp.
Yeah.
She's like, can we go to lunch? I was like, Molly, we're not going to go to lunch every day during winter break. And I guarantee you, if the people at Monarch Money looked at our ledger, they would be shocked at how much money the Wilsons spend on dining out.
Restaurants, yeah.
And Monarch Money can help you, manage your money. Is your spending out of control? Are you wondering why the heck you're not saving money, even though you are doing pretty good on the salary department? Monarch's going to help you figure it out. And, there are friends here. If you use the code DLLS at monarchmoney.com, you get 50% off your first year, which is pretty outstanding. And, just managing bills, managing saving for college or saving for retirement. Monarch's going to help you do it. And they're going to be thorough. They're going to be interactive with you. And if you stick to their plan, it's going to work. So, again, code DLS at monarchmoney.com.
One of the things you got to be careful about when you are in a clubhouse, as we are often, and what happens, like after last night's game, I'm sure I wasn't there, but there are big gatherings of reporters around one athlete, and we call those gangbangs, unfortunately. Anyway, so we've got the gangbang going, and I'll tell you one thing. If there's somebody in the gangbang that stinks, you know about it. And
Amen.
I want to make sure that ain't me. And it's an easy solution, man. Or should I say, Mando.
Oh.
You see what I did there?
I did.
I love Mando. $5 off your starter pack if you use the code DLLS. They see all the products that'll come in that starter pack. I'm a big fan of the wipes because I use them all over me body. And you should too. Mando is a great product. Smells great. They've got several fragrances, so you don't have to use the one I do. Just use Mando.
Yeah, the reason I carry breath mints in my backpack is for the gangbang.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. You got to have them.
Yeah.
I mean, and sometimes you kind of smell that, and you go, "Good God, is that me?"
Well, I'll be honest. Somebody in the gangbang with the manager yesterday needed Mando or Mando breath mints. Something. Yeah. It wasn't right, so I had to switch sides.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I hate that.
Yeah.
All right. So on Tuesday, I had a chance to meet. I should have sent Prophet the picture. I was standing there talking to the Prophet because he was at the game that day doing his work for MLB, and I go, "Oh, hang on, brother, I got to go. I've got to go meet Brett Boone."
Yeah.
And I forgot to pull them up, but maybe Prophet can get them real quick. Yeah. There's a couple of pictures of me actually shaking hands with old Brett Boone and meeting him for the first time, Jeff. But anyway, I was walking up to him just as David Murphy was walking up to him as well. So the three of us had a long conversation about hitting. It was really fun, actually. It's always fun for me to hear two baseball minds, really break it down while I was just kind of an observer, but kind of, stirring the conversation and stirring the pot as well. And I would say that the big takeaways from my conversation with Brett Boone are not remarkably different from the ones that most people have had. However, there are some specifics that I think you're going to be very interested in, including the fact that, the big picture wise, right, it's a simpler approach to this thing.
Yeah.
And it's a psychological approach to this thing. He said we were using vernacular and slang in our conversation, and I said, he said, thing about being a coach is you got to be a father figure, you got to be a teacher, and I interjected, you got to be a shrink, and he said some of my best hitting coaches were my best shrinks, right? And the point is, it's almost all mental. And he said the words, everybody who gets here is uber talented. So when they are struggling, it's all up here. It's all in their head, and it is his goal. It is his mission. It is his objective to figure out how to unlock what is sort of locked up here for so many of them right now. That's the picture. That's the plan. That's the good news. He's got a plan. There it is. Look at the hair. Oh, Rad's meeting Boone. Again, reminds you how short he is. Murph and I both towering over Boone, but
looks like you're about to kiss the ring. Looks like
that's right. That's right.
The beginning or the end of the handshake.
He does look like he could still play. However,
oh my gosh!
And moments after we spoke with him, by the way, he ran out to second base and was, fielding grounders and all that with Simeon. But anyway, his idea is to figure out the psychology of this process, okay, and of his play. The only way to figure out your players in that realm, though, is to talk to them, is to get to know them, and that takes time. I brought up to him, I said, when Mark McLemore said to me last year, when Edgar Martinez came back to the Mariners as a hitting coach, and at the time the Mariners had the worst offense in baseball, and it immediately turned around. And Mac, when he saw me, he goes, "I'll be danged, Edgar knows how to hit," right? I mean, and he goes, "I think just like Edgar," right? He goes, "That's my mentor. I think just like Edgar," and that's what Edgar does, and that's what Edgar's trying to do. So that part is not much different from what we've heard from other people. What I also asked him, though, is I said, I know you want guys to have conversations in the dugout and talk about the game and talk through the game. And he said, absolutely I do. I don't want guys going back to their iPad as soon as they get done with an at-bat and studying what they did better or what they could do better or what they did right. He doesn't want that. He says that's inward. That's sort of, he didn't use the word selfish. I'm paraphrasing selfish, but that's like, he wants you to be more part of the team, part of a conversation. Don't worry about this thing quite so much. Don't worry about that specific at bat quite so much. Have conversations, watch the game, know the game, and the hitting will take care of itself, right? And he took it a step further. He said, I want these guys to have conversations out here at the batting cage. We looked over at the cage from where we were standing, and there's only 2 or 3 guys out there at the same time. And this was early in probably the first session of batting practice. And he's like, I want everybody out here and talking about the game and talking about tonight's pitcher and playing grab ass and being irreverent to each other and just being a team. And these are the kinds of things that he's striving for. And the reason he is they work, right?
Yeah.
They worked for him. They work. They have always worked in baseball. And it gets back to the simple thing that Ron Washington said so eloquently. You got to do what the game asks you to do.
Right.
And the only way you can do what the game asks you to do is to know what the game wants you to do.
Yeah, and I wonder, I really do, if guys know.
I do too, and it sounds to me like he's suggesting they don't.
Some of them might not.
Yeah,
you just don't see the ground ball to second base with the runner at second.
No,
it's like, God dang it, get him over.
Yeah,
a ground ball up the middle with a runner at third and less than 2 outs, that's going to get the run home. Okay, to your point, kind of continuing, I had a conversation with him about the iPads. He said there was an instance at some point since he took over where somebody hit a home run, and the first thing he did was go look at the iPad.
Yeah.
And he said, why are you looking at the iPad? You know that was perfect. You don't need to look at the iPad.
Yeah.
And then last night, the broadcast, I turned to the TV by my seat there in the press box, and Josh Smith and Corey Seager were both on their iPads.
I know.
And so it's going to take some schooling. Now there are guys who, if Corey Seager's up with a runner at second base and no outs, you don't want him to get the runner over.
No.
I mean, ideally, he would do something. His out would be productive, but you're not looking for him to just move the guy over and manufacture a run. You want him to do some damage. So there are going to be exceptions in the lineup, but right now, a productive out might feel like a hit. And there are players who recognize it. You'll see somebody ground out to second, get the guy over to third with 1 out. he'll come to the dugout to a bunch of high fives.
Right.
It's like, hey, you did a job. You know, you just don't see it now. You just don't. And maybe that's a launch angle thing. Maybe guys just don't know how to go the other way. I'm not, some of it could be pitching. Maybe they're in those situations, they're pitched to where the likely outcome is going to be them pulling the ball or doing something. Right. But it just seems like it was so commonplace not that long ago. And now you just don't see it with the Texas Rangers.
It's almost absent. And you're right. We don't watch the other teams that closely. So I don't know exactly how they approach that thing, but that's absolutely something that needs to be done. It sounds to me like another big concern, and I think you may have had part of this conversation with him, is that Brett said to me and to Murph, he said, everybody's doing their own thing. And we know what that means, right? He said, they're looking at their video, they're setting up their cameras, all those things. He said, I want guys to do this collectively as a team. And I said, sort of trying to prompt and bait him, if you will, they all have their own coaches. He didn't take that bait. So he didn't touch on that one at all. So I don't think he wants to go there and say, you can't have your own individual coaches.
Right.
However, he doesn't love that everybody is kind of preparing in their own way instead of in that same way that everybody did when he played and really has done throughout most of the history of baseball.
Well, I think it's interesting in that if you look at the starting rotation, those guys go watch each other throw.
Yeah.
They watch each other throw their bullpen sessions.
Yes.
They're playing catch next to each other, with each other, giving each other feedback on what they're seeing, whether it's on flat ground or in the bullpen, and they'll do it during a game. They'll say, hey, this is what worked for me. Why don't you try this? Or, hey, your mechanics look screwed up, something like that. And those starting pitchers will watch the game, especially the ones who are pitching later in the series.
Yeah.
So, it's very similar. Why aren't the hitters doing the same thing? Why aren't they in the cage together, looking at these guys and BP in spring training? BP's light and fun. Like, oh yeah, is that a home run?
Sure.
Yeah, all that.
There's
stuff.
all kinds of grab ass.
But you just don't seem to see it or hear it here. Maybe it's because the ballpark's louder. I don't know. But it's like they get into their individual programs here, and that's how they go. And it seems like batting practice, I'm sure they're applying what they've done in the cage or the feedback they've gotten from their hitting coach or the Rangers hitting coaches, but it just seems like it's part of the day, not the main part of the day though. I always thought when I first started on the beat, everybody took BP.
Right.
Everybody took BP.
Yep.
BP took forever, and now sometimes it's optional, but sometimes, Corey Seager never hits on the field. Jonah Heim rarely hits on the field. It's like, why, and so, it's worked for Corey, obviously.
And maybe
Corey's just in his own category. But
and maybe it's as simple as that. These young guys are looking at Corey going, well, maybe I should approach it more like he does because he does it so well, in the games. But I think his is a rare, very rare circumstance, and I think they all need to listen to Boone.
Well, Ohtani, great, doesn't hit on the field. So there are guys around the league that don't do it. But at a time like this, when nothing's working, why wouldn't you try what the new guy wants? Why wouldn't you try that? And maybe he doesn't want to be. He didn't want to come in and start rattling cages. Right. But at some point, it's a month on next week. A month Tuesday is when he will have been the hitting coach for 4 weeks. It's time to. Maybe it might be time to do that. It might be time to rattle a cage or two.
Yeah, it really might be. And it was funny because he said at one point, he goes, I got here and right away we went on a run. We were 6-1. And he said, and I told everybody I had almost nothing to do with that. And then soon after that, we went on a run where we were 1-6. And I told everybody I had almost nothing to do with that, you know. And I'm glad to see Rarities in the chat, because Rarities, we're going to thank you here when we come back, as well as get to some Rangers nuggets. It's all coming up. It's the DLLS Rangers podcast.
Oh, man. Empire today. We talked about them last night. Talked about the issues we're having with wet feet on our floors.
Yep.
I mean, we've had all kinds of things happen to our floors. Dead animals, scooter marks.
Yeah.
And
back as far as big wheels type things.
Just spills. You name it. Our floors have seen it, and after 12 years, it is past due time to get these floors. We've got the kids pretty much in a less damaging state now that they're 10 and 12. But anyway, when this time comes, when the wife and I finally make our decision after we talk to Monarch Money and figure out if we can do it, we're going to Empire Today, and we're going to go to empiretoday.com/DLLS for $350 off. They come to your house. They make it that easy to help you match everything. And again, they're leaders in the industry. It's all they do. Tile, hardwoods, carpeting, you name it, Empire Today is here to help.
Mentioned the other day, we were actually in the pool, and my kids were talking about getting new sunglasses, and I said, have you tried Shady Rays? And they both put them on and went, whoa, these are polarized beauties, and they really are. And and I talked them into it, and I reminded them, you get 35% off if you buy these glasses. And so just saving that over and above. Plus, the ones they were talking about were the kind that are probably more expensive than Shady Rays anyway. So they're going to save a ton of money by getting Shady Rays. And I promise you, they're going to have every bit as good, if not better, a sunglass experience. I mentioned my new Shady Rays are on the way. They've been ordered. I'll be modeling them soon. I'm a huge fan of Shady Rays sunglasses, their styles, their durability, their guarantee, their look, their polarization, their colors. ShadyRays.com, DLLS, 35% off. Okay, so Rarities, thank you. We didn't get to it last night, but there's Rarities with a super chat for us. This actually came in last night. Would Boone bring in Manny Ramirez to help coach the hitters? Seems Manny wants to coach some hitters. I don't think there's a necessity, a budget, a willingness right now to throw another voice into the mix.
Yeah, I wouldn't discount a veteran hitter, somebody who Boone played with or was teammates with. Well, that's played against, played with, whatever. If he becomes the full-time guy after this year. His deal right now just goes through the end of the year. And if they can't hit, are the Rangers going to want him back? And is he going to want to come back? But if he does, and if things turn around, he seems to be really enjoying himself.
He does.
But you could see a situation like that. And there are, if guys can coach, they can coach. And I wouldn't be, I don't think the Rangers would be adverse to that, and they have Justin Veely, who's the relationship is very good from what Boone says. Seth Connor also in there as the assistant hitting coach. It seems like they're forming a decent dynamic. It's just not translating it. Now, because we forgot Rarity's
super chat
yesterday, I am going to buy one right now matching his funds.
Okay. So that's awesome.
So here it goes.
Yeah.
Just so that, we feel like we're in line with everything. I don't know the security code. I think I do.
All right. Well, that's fine.
It's a process.
It's a gesture that I truly appreciate. I wouldn't even know how to do it right now.
Yeah.
So have you done it?
I thought it said it went. Did it not go? There she is.
Yeah. Okay.
So this week on the weekly podcast, we're going to have Double-A pitcher Mitch Bratt. So we're going to shoot that tomorrow morning, and hopefully it'll be out tomorrow afternoon on the YouTube channel and on the Simplecast, so you can listen to it on your various podcast platforms. So,
yeah, that's awesome.
There you go.
Thanks, Rarities. We appreciate you, and I do think that one of the things Boone also said to me with regard to Edgar, and I was saying, do you feel like his approach, he said, yeah, it's just like mine, or mine's just like his. He was my mentor. He said, but he warns me that it takes almost a year for everything to sink in. That's the bad news. Now, if you like Brett Boone, which we do, and if things start to turn around, maybe that becomes good news, because I don't think he'll want to leave this job unfinished. Right? Yeah, and so I think that if he stays, it'll be because he wants to make sure that this year, or almost a year of getting into the mindset and the psyche of these players, works, that it has time to happen. And that's where I think a Manny Ramirez, Rarities, would be, or anybody else that's been a great hitter. I get it. But I think a guy like that would sort of, muck up the works a little bit and make it just a little more confusing, and another voice and another approach and another thought process. So I think there's enough of that right now. I think it shows. I talked last night even about like check swings. I'm noticing check swings are just so tentative. Like they're not, they're not like used to, or normally it's like a check swing. Comes back right away. It seems like they're not even sure about their check swings right now. They've got to get the plaque off the brain, right? They've got plaque build up on the brain, and they need to get that the heck out of there. And hopefully, Brett Boone's approach will help with that. There are obviously some wonderful highlights to appreciate. Most of them are pitching, but there's Alejandro Osuna, who Jeff, in 10 at-bats, has seen 51 pitches.
Hey, that'll work.
This is a baby, right?
That'll work.
This is a baby in Major League Baseball, and he's seeing more than 5 pitches per at-bat and drawing walks. He drew a walk last night.
Yeah, this is a good ball player. And I'm doing that based on more than just his 4 MLB games.
Sure.
Spring training, just having seen what he did in the minor leagues last year and what he's really done his whole minor league career. Just, I don't know that he does any one thing great or is elite in any one thing, maybe defense, but he's not going to hit 25 homers, but he might hit 15 to 20. He's going to get on base, and he's going to steal bases. He just does a lot of things really, really well. And he's a ball player, as they say, which is a hell of a compliment, especially when it comes from a guy like Bruce Bochy,
right,
Tony Beasley, guys who've been in the game a long time and have an appreciation for guys who play hard, do the right things. He's a smart player. He doesn't make I know he made that mistake rounding third, but he was also being waved home the other night when he got tagged out on that ground ball that got booted. So there are a lot of things to like about this guy beyond just the 4 games that he's done. I did ask if he was going to face left-handers. And Boch said probably not, at least not early on. I'm not sure what right-handed hitting options they have. Pillar's not on the club anymore. So, and they just sent down Blaine Krim. Not that Blaine Krim is an outfielder by any stretch, but there aren't a ton of left-handed bats out there. So that might be a scenario where Haggerty will play and move Langford back to left, and then you have both catchers in the lineup. But how about this? What are you going to do if and I said this last night, if Osuna remains one of your better players when Evan Carter comes back? What are you going to do with that roster spot?
Yeah, he's staying up.
Do you send down Duran? Because I don't even know the last time Duran played.
No.
But if Corey Seager, if he's going to be DHing a lot, you need to have that extra infielder. Would that be the end of the 3 catcher experiment with Tucker Barnhart?
Maybe that's
because,
right.
Higashioka was pinch run for in the win the other night, and Bruce Bochy was asked, if you hadn't had Tucker Barnhart, would you have not pinch run for Higashioka? And Bruce said, I probably would have run for him anyway. So that means he's not really afraid of losing the DH.
Sure.
And again, with the extra inning rule, where it's runner at second, games don't go so long that God, you're going to have to pinch hit 9 guys. It's really not as big of a risk as it used to be. So Anyway, I don't know where I'm going with all this, but Alejandro Osuna, I like him a lot.
Good guy, a good player. And the another positive, Jake Berger's defense. Good gosh.
Yeah.
In the first inning alone yesterday, he starts a 3-6-3, which is a very difficult double play to turn, and it was turned easily. And then the very next ball that was hit came like a smash to him, and he converts a 3-1 put out to the pitcher. I mean, and I think there was at least one other play where it came. It was just a great play by Berger. Man, for a guy we weren't sure about as a first baseman, and it's definitely an area where we were, concerned that there would be fall off because Nathaniel Lowe had developed himself into a very good first baseman. Jake Berger hasn't missed a beat.
The one thing that Bochy mentioned when they were talking about the conversion, and one thing that was evident last night, Jake Berger's a former third baseman.
Infielder, yeah.
And that arm was evident on the throw to second base.
Yeah.
A slower throw might not have gotten the double play, but he fired that thing to second. It was right on the money, and then they're able to complete the double play. So that's something in that play, in that instance in particular, where the arm came in. He also had over the weekend, I think it was, or maybe it was Monday night, an assist for an out at home.
At home, yeah.
You got to throw that ball hard.
Yep.
You really do. And he was able to do it, and it was right where it needed to be. So first basemen do not have to have great arms, but you notice when one does, and Jake is evidence of that. And again, the bat's cooled off a little bit since the road trip where he had the 2-homer game, but he's still a better player than he was when he went down to AAA to get things figured out. So he might need to be lower in the order, though. It seems like since he's moved up, the numbers have moved down.
Hard. Yeah. And that's the point, too. I mean, right now, you can't have everybody in the bottom third of the order. You feel like you have to have Simeon and Adolis down there. And that's the one thing we haven't talked about yet. But let's get to that as we run through some Rangers Nuggets. At what point do you sit them, right?
Yeah.
Evan Carter coming back would probably, and again, I know it's not imminent, but he'll do a rehab start this weekend more than likely. Could be a longer than normal rehab start, by the way, from what Boch has said.
Yeah.
But with him coming back, Adolis, if he's still in this funk, could be a candidate to sit.
Yeah, it's the question was asked last night, and the word used was meritocracy, meaning do the people who are playing the best get the playing time, and the people struggling like Simeon and Garcia have to sit. To which I say a few things. The answer was yes. We've had some injuries. These guys have had to play a lot, so it might be easier to do. It might be easier to give them rest, is the way I interpreted that. Not as we're going to bench these guys,
right?
And maybe rest, as we've seen with Jonah Heim and Kyle Higashioka's effect on Heim. Maybe that would help these guys, catch their breath and feel better at the plate, and their bat speed pick up a little bit. I don't know. The other thing to that, and this is something Chris Young has said, something that I've said without talking to Chris Young, is that those two guys play really good defense.
Yes.
And if you're not scoring runs, you got to prevent them. Now, again, could somebody else play right field as well as Adolis? I don't think it'd be a huge drop-off, because like Osuna is going to be faster. Evan Carter can play right field. He could be a little faster. So I don't know how huge of a deal that would be. I think losing the defense at second would be a deal, but if Seager's at shortstop, that frees up Josh Smith to play second.
You got to feel like
there are
pretty good
some things that could happen on that front. But as far as like straight benching them, turning them into 10 at bat players, I don't think that's
they're not going to become
works.
Pinch hitters, right?
Right.
Yeah, bench players. I think you're right. I think the idea would be to hopefully just a 3-day break or a 4-day break or whatever would sort of let them refresh and get back to being who they are and who they can be and to clear their mind. I mean, Sometimes something like that is, again, they've tried everything else. So that needs to be probably one of the next things they need to try. 7 shutouts so far this season. It's crazy that this team has been shut out that many times. And I saw somebody put out on Twitter in my notifications last night or maybe this morning, if the Rangers scored at a clip of 5 runs per game like they did in 2023, they'd have 39 wins. 39 wins if they were scoring like they did in 2023. And as we said last night, it's the same guys, Jeff.
It is. That's just it. And you can go back to that 40-20 stretch. Mitch Garver really wasn't part of that because he had been hurt to start the season.
Yeah.
Then Mitch Garver came into the second half and did well in the postseason. After that stretch, the Rangers were 2 games under 500 the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So they end up making the postseason, winning the World Series. So the hope, I guess, is that 40-20 stretch is coming.
This is the opposite this year. Yeah.
And at some point in the season, you kind of look at what the Tigers did last year. The way they came on late and in the second half. And I saw something yesterday. Over the last 100 games, they've been the best team in baseball.
Wow.
Including the games this season.
Yeah.
So it can happen at any time, and that's the thing that the Rangers still believe. Because I asked Bruce Bochy point blank, you want this team to be what you believe they can be, but what if this is who they are? And he said, no, you never stop believing. It would be bad for the guys if I were to say otherwise. I believe that they're going to be good. And you look at the back of the baseball card, and they look like they're great. Tyler Mahle yesterday, and after his start, spoke, once these guys get going, we're going to be really, really good, and we could be the best team in baseball. If the pitching holds up and the offense comes around, that's true. At 40-20, that the Rangers were the best team.
We compared them to the 27 Yankees.
I mean they were really, really, really good. So it's time. It's just how much longer can you wait on this? And I don't know.
All right, we got a break. We get to the series, the upcoming series against the Cardinals next, and then we clean things up as well. It's all next.
We got a ton of questions we need to answer.
Tons of questions. DLLS Rangers podcast. Hey, become a diehard. Today's the day. Today's the last day to get this $36 summer sale. This is a fantastic deal for you right now. You got more than half off. And again, like we've said, $36 and you get a $35 T-shirt or $34.99, right? So you basically become a diehard for free. There's so much that we offer to our diehards, including all of that work that is done so feverishly by our great writers that's behind the paywall, that is, not the payroll, but the paywall. And you can avail yourself to that very easily for just basically $1 if you take away the price of the free T-shirt. So we encourage you to become a diehard today because today's the day. It's a 2-day sale, and we really want you to save this money and get all the benefits. Also, 20% off of our events. More of those will be coming. 20% off any future merchandise you decide to buy. So please, become a diehard today.
You look at that sweet shirt that John is wearing. I'm wearing the same one underneath.
First time it's happened.
I kept the pullover on.
Jeff took one for the team.
We couldn't be the team, the twins, but we're Shackett brothers, but we're not going to wear the same T-shirt.
That's a little much.
Anyway, again, these are available at store.allcitynetwork.com. And there's one Ranger shirt I don't own, and then we're coming out with another one that everybody is going to want to own. All right? I don't know when it's going to be ready, but it's going to be soon. And I will be, if I'm not the first one to purchase it, I bet you I'm one of the first.
Yeah, I will too.
100.
I promise you.
People are going to want this thing.
I promise you.
It's going to be awesome. So
we won't even mind if we wear that same shirt.
We probably should.
If we're shirt twins
show
that
people
day.
how awesome it is. Store.allcitynetwork.com. We have more than shirts. Got shot glasses and coffee mugs and flags and stuff like that. And soon hats. I can't wait. Store.allcitynetwork.com.
All right, it's the Cardinals coming next after this off day. Again, the pitching matchup favors the Rangers as we take a look at the rotation spots for each of these three games. Jack Leiter's been great. Patrick Corbin's been ridiculous. And Jacob deGrom is Jacob deGrom. And ironically, he's actually coming off of a non-Jacob deGrom-like performance. So I think you'll see him come out and pitch great. So you'll feel really good about what the Rangers have on the mound each and every night, as you pretty much have all year, Jeff.
Yeah, I did talk to Jacob yesterday about his finger, which I told him, boy, it sure looked like you had a blister the other day. He's like, well, I do that after every pitch, kind of the mannerisms I was taking him through what he did and how the one time he grabbed his glove. And he was like, yeah, I have no idea. I didn't know I was doing that. So, but it looks like just something that he said happens. It almost looks like a callus. And the concern is if a piece of skin gets kind of ripped, that's the only time it really bothers him, and he just wants to make sure at that point that it doesn't become a tear, because that would be a big issue. So if you see him out there working a finger, it might be he's trying to get some dead skin off or something like that. But he's not worried about it. He's more worried about his mechanics. You looked at the Cardinals matchup there. Matthew Libator has been around for a while as a prospect. Sonny Gray and Eric, God, I want to say Fetty. I can't remember.
I don't know.
He was available at the trade deadline last year. He doesn't strike a lot of guys out. Pitches to contact. But again, as we just saw with the Blue Jays, they all look like Cy Young winners. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, feel good about the Rangers pitching. All right, Mista asked, does Evan Ricardo return for the Cardinals series? No, he does not. He's going on a rehab assignment. I'm going to think next weekend will be when Evan makes his debut
in Washington.
At Washington. Yeah. That would be my guess. Boo, I've seen your tweets. If the O does get hot in the second half, the risk is that our pitching can't keep up as hot as they are.
Yeah.
I agree. I think there's some regression in there.
That's why you're keeping an eye back here. Yeah.
That's why our buddy Mike Maddox is as good at his job as he is. He'll figure something out. McJowers has been very active. And somebody asked about optioning. Blake asked about optioning Adolis like they did Berger. I was told that's not in the plans. I think Adolis is a delicate flower, and I think that would make him even more of would cause some more problems than it's worth maybe. You're just kind of stuck. But to McJower's points, they're not going to do it, and I don't think that he's in their long range plans beyond this year. And I wouldn't be surprised, kind of like his buddy Randy Arozarena, if he was traded at the deadline if the Rangers aren't in it. I don't know. I just don't see the Rangers giving him that
big deal
contract next year in his last year of arbitration. I don't think they're going to extend him unless he goes crazy. And then even then, I think it's just arbitration, and they wouldn't extend him. They'd go ahead and let him go into free agency. Where else are we at? Our guy Tanner has been in the chat mixing it up. I like it.
But appreciate that.
The point is that there's not a lot that this team can do. There's a Sam Haggerty, Kevin Pillar debate. I like Pillar better. Haggerty's doing this. If we're arguing over the 26th guy on the bench, that kind of tells you where the team's at. You probably don't need to be counting on them a lot.
Neither one.
And that's kind of why Pillar was on the team. Yes, he was being counted on against left-handers, but it just got to the point where the Rangers needed to do some stuff. They needed a roster spot because they knew they were going to call up an outfielder in Osuna, and it didn't work out. Ethan is saying that Carter hasn't been good. 182 average with 290 on base percentage. He isn't changing anything. I would disagree. I think that when Evan was playing, yes, the hits weren't there, but the at bats were good. And the Rangers see that and believe that too, and thought that he was having an effect on the rest of the team. So I think that the Rangers were going to welcome Evan back with open arms and play him as much as they can. Maybe not against left-handers. So and then Blake or somebody said that Pilar isn't going to be on the team for another month, or not Pilar, but Haggerty. If the Rangers still need a right-handed hitting outfielder, Haggerty has a chance. He's the switch hitter. So Ethan said it. I think that there's a chance for Haggerty to stay just because of the lack of right-handed hitting outfielders.
They've got to have somebody that can hit against lefties as an outfielder.
I mean, the Rangers are dreadful against lefties again. Color me shocked. How did that? They thought they had it fixed and they didn't.
Right.
And although signing Jock Peterson was not going to help against left-handers, the Rangers weren't very good against right-handers last year either. But we don't have to worry about old Jock for a little while.
No, and that was the other thing too, though. When you're speaking of center field, how great a job has and easy a transition has it been for Wyatt Langford?
Yeah, you don't even notice.
My gosh, he is so good out there.
His improvements defensively have been staggering. I mean,
that was a catcher in college.
That was the huge storyline last year. It wasn't coming out of spring training. It wasn't if he's going to hit. Everybody just assumed he was going to hit. It was how bad is his defense, and he was the DH to open the season, and he played sparingly in the outfield, and then they eventually just threw him out there more. And there were some adventures, and there kind of still are at times. Some routes that he takes, sometimes you wonder about, but he's been great in center, and he's been one of the best left fielders in the game defensively.
Sure.
So, that's a pretty remarkable thing that he's done, to go from a defensive liability in a lot of people's minds to like a guy you can't play without defensively.
Right. Yeah, no, it's been fantastic to watch him. He hasn't and again, he's in a bit of a dip himself offensively.
He is
now.
Yeah, and some of that's been luck. I mean, he's hit a lot of balls hard, and hasn't had much to show for it. His average is down to 240. His OPS is still above 800, I believe, which leads the team. Non-Seager. How about qualifying hitters leads the team? So. Missa, you got the rotation. BC, good to see you. Tough loss for your boys yesterday in Cleveland.
Yeah,
I know that only one of my fantasy closers is Tanner Scott, and he's had it rough here in the last week or so. Anyway, it's just a tough time right now for this team. And one of the things that Simeon kept saying when he's talking about the frustration. His own, and then as a unit, the offense, they're just wasting all this great pitching.
Right.
And to your point, with the record, they could have 39 wins if their offense was similar to what it had done in 23. And it's pretty crazy. Mista, who just said Langford is looking like the only all-star on this team besides the pitching staff. I think that Seager always has a chance to be an all-star.
Sure.
And if he gets hot at the right time, he may not win the popular vote or the fan vote, but he has the respect of his peers, and they're going to see him. And like last year, he was an all-star. Maybe he was an alternate, I don't recall, but he still made it.
Yeah.
I think that he's going to get enough support from the players that he's going to go ahead and make it. But you and Ethan are both right on DeGrom, Malley, and Eovaldi at this point. They sure seem like all-stars, and it would be a high crime if they weren't put on the team. I don't know how you wouldn't do it. How these teams that are facing the Rangers would not vote for those pitchers,
right?
And be like,
especially right now, Eovaldi and Malley. Even more so than Jacob.
Sure.
I mean, those guys have been almost unhittable, evidenced by their ERAs.
Yeah, and good defense helps them out. They're the first to acknowledge that. There were a couple nice plays behind Malley last night. There was a deep fly ball when he was in that funk with the guy, I can't think of his name, the left-handed hitter. Hit a fastball on the outside edge, hit it to deep right center.
Yes.
Thought, oh boy, this one's trouble. He hit it high enough that Langford could run underneath it and catch it, and they ended up not scoring in the inning.
I think, is that the inning too where he walked two in that inning?
Yeah, I think it was.
Back-to-back guys. Yeah. So there was traffic on the back. I think there were runners at first and third at that point, but that was it. Yeah.
So what else do we have? One large scoop. We're going to see some regression on the pitching side. I think it's inevitable.
Sure.
But even if it's a run a game, or if their ERAs climb by a run each, that's still really, really good pitching. And I just think that, you know, it's just, like last night where like after the game, it's like, you know, just, it's probably as dumbfounded as I've been.
Yeah.
You know, to have them get the hit to start the game against a guy who was making his first career start, and then they didn't get a hit the rest of the way. It was like a no-hitter. And like I said last night, I've seen, you know, in 21 when the team was so terrible and they got no hit twice within a month, those games were still better games, better offensive games than what the Rangers did last night.
Once. Who was the other one?
Joe Musgrove for the Padres.
I think I missed that game.
I think he was first. I don't remember. I just remember that there were two in about 3 or 4 weeks span, both of them at Globe Life Field.
Yep.
The Kluber one, of course, stung because the season before he had pitched 1 inning for him.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just we're in a heck of a spot, John. I don't think you and I have ever been in it with this team.
No,
before.
Not like this. Never seen it. Never seen the pitching this good. Almost never seen the offense this bad. Something's got to give. We hope it does soon. The Cardinals come calling this weekend. Let's see what happens there. We're not back with you again until Sunday for a post-game edition of the DLLS podcast. But we want to remind you, you can watch your stuff on YouTube this weekend. We'll be creating some content for you to peruse, and we'd appreciate it if you would do that. But for now, that's going to do it for us, and we appreciate you hanging out with us today on the DLLS Rangers podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.